Okay, so we're going to go ahead and pick up with Module 6, Bellwork, Sponges, Signals, and Transitions. Next slide, Shannon. So it says while you're waiting for the session, I know we're already in session, but really quickly in the chat box, if you could type in some activities that you do when students enter your classroom. We often call it entry routines, but take a minute to do that real quick. Oh, yes, Alice, you had a question?
No, sorry, I forgot to put down my hand.
Oh, okay, no problem. Good, I see some removing shoes, washing hands, name and letter tracing. Yeah, writing homework is a good one too while they're waiting. Morning math problem, that's really great, Michelle. Planner, I'm guessing that would be the same, like copying homework or checking the planner. What they need, there are slides that has what they need. Oh, okay, perfect. I'm still waiting for them on their desk. Awesome. Yes, that really helps them actually to get set for the day and ready for whatever you have in plan for them. Attendance, get materials. Yes, good. Check mailbox, read a book or shop for books, turn in homework. Awesome, Tia. Okay. All right, so looks like a common theme is checking the planners or writing homework in the planners, which is a great way to start too, I think, because you have those few minutes. Why not have the students start that? I know it's a little bit more difficult in kindergarten and even sometimes first grade, but if they start getting into that routine, that's a good one. For my class, when they enter, I have what they call table activities, and it's just that time in the morning where they're allowed to explore some of the small muscle manipulatives. They don't know it, but it's really helping them to build their small muscles that helps them with writing, etc. But we call them table games. So when the students come in after they check in, sanitize, then they go right to the table games. They call it table games, and they start doing some of the activities till the bell rings. So they've got that routine pretty well down. And when they're done, there's another bell that rings after that to get us ready for the morning assembly. They'll make sure they have the rooms cleaned up and picked up by that time. So it's really neat to see that even if I'm not there, that they can still remember that routine. As soon as we come in, sanitize, check in, and then go straight to the table activities. In one classroom I've seen where the teacher will put as a reminder, drink your water, sharpen your pencils, things that they sometimes ask you to do once class started. And it's like, okay, get those things done ahead of time when you're not really instructing yet. So thank you for sharing your morning routines or entry routines that you have with your students. Okay, next, Shannon. So as you can see from this morning, we went through 5A procedures and then 5B, which was our classroom organization. Shannon went over the assignments for the portfolio or your assignment and then your portfolio entry. So now we're on to module 6, which is the bellwork and sponges. All right, so bellwork. Next. So basically what a bellwork is an activity that students can complete, preferably independently, when they walk into the room. And this allows you time to, whether it's take attendance, to check students' planners, to see if there's any messages that came from the parents. That's a good time to do it if the students can engage in the bellwork independently, so that you're able to do other things that you need to do while the students enter. Next, Shannon. Okay, so just some characteristics about how you set up the bellwork. It generally consumes about the first 5 minutes of the morning. That's a rough estimate, depending what time students start coming to your classroom until the time that you start your day. Like at our school, we have a morning assembly that starts at 8. So they have about 10, 15 minutes before all that happens. Generally, you post your bell work in the same place so students know where to look when they come in, and it's not like, oh, where is it today? Where do I find my bell work? But it's already there. And I know someone mentioned about putting it or posting it and having it in the, like I know Ashley, you mentioned with what they need on the left side, which materials they need for the class, and then making sure that it's always pretty much in the same place. The students will know what to look and where to find it. And then the bell work generally serves a purpose. And when we mean that serves a purpose, it means it could be something that they're familiar with. It might be a review of something that they've already learned, but it's just a few minutes, about 5 minutes of time in your morning where they participate in a bell work, or what we call, could be called an entry routine. All right, Shannon? Okay, so what I have here is an example of a bell work, which is which one doesn't belong. And as you can see, we have the slides labeled with numbers 1 through 4. And what the students will do is have a conversation with each other about which one of those items doesn't belong and why. So what they'll do is they'll just partner with someone at the carpet that's next to them and talk about it. And then if your students, my students were a younger K1, and the older students can oftentimes write it down into their journal, which one doesn't belong, and then write an explanation why. For the Ks, it goes a little bit quick, so having a couple slides is a good idea because then students have more than one thing to talk about. And then always challenging them, like, okay, you said maybe 2 doesn't belong. Why? And what about maybe 4? Why would you think 4 doesn't belong? So I know sometimes with the lower grades, you're a little bit limited to what you can write, but this one is definitely a visual that they can take part in independently. And they love it. They love coming up with the ideas of which one doesn't belong. Okay, so what we're going to do, next slide, Shannon, is Shannon has created some local versions of which one doesn't belong. And she's going to take a little bit time sharing with you the ones that she has here displayed. So Shannon.
Why doesn't everybody quick type in the chat box which one they think doesn't belong and why? Whether it be number 1, 2, 3, or 4.
Did you want to say what they were? Yeah,
oh,
I want to maybe explain.
Do you want me to explain what they are?
Yeah, that might be good.
Okay, because I don't to my students.
Yeah.
I just let them go. So number 1 is fried breakfast potatoes. Number 2 is bacon. Number 3 is eggs. And number 4 is banana lumpia.
Yeah, remember to put in your why. Yeah. So we usually ask them to not just put which one, but to give an explanation too.
Okay, everything at 3 because everything else is cooked. That works too.
Oh, that's funny.
Okay, some other reasons that have been shared with me in the past is number 4, because it is not on a circular plate or container, or because it's not thought of as a breakfast food. I think, what were some of the other reasons? Yeah, so when COVID hit, I was doing this was my bell work every day my students came in the classroom for the school year 18-19. And then when COVID happened and we switched to online learning, I still wanted to keep this, but I started running out of ideas. Or I started running out of material. So I just thought, like, you know what, let's just start creating stuff. And I've done things with stuffed animals or different candies or chips or whatever. And I just kind of took a board, and you can see the blue painter's tape, and numbered it 1, 2, 3, 4, and put whatever in each corner. And the kids always come up with something of why one of them doesn't belong. Okay.
Yeah, thank you, Shannon. That's really makes them hungry probably when they see that too. Okay, next slide. Also with that one, if you just Google which one doesn't belong, there's a whole bunch of different ones, and you can even do it by grade level too. So it's really neat. I know sometimes teachers will say, well, it takes time to put them together, and it does, but there are some already made out there. And it's really a good way to get students talking. And then when you talk about the math reasoning or explanations, they're able to give that to each other too, because a lot of them you'll notice are tied into math, etc. So really good way to get them talking. All right, so that was bell work, really, again, thinking about what do students do for that first 5 minutes of the day, or when you have a few minutes left. Now we have a next thing called sponge activities. And what we mean by sponge activities is really, when you think of a sponge, it soaks up something, right? So a sponge activity will soak up that few minutes that you have of precious time that would otherwise have been lost. So let's say you finish a lesson a little bit earlier and it's like maybe 4 more minutes till recess. What do the students do? So one of the ways to help your classroom management is to make sure that you do have some activity done or have some activity prepared so students can do that activity and use up those 4 minutes of time doing something that often relates to something some curriculum or something you've already taught. So some examples I have on there is, I have on the left the TH. And what we do with that is, if we learn that digraph TH, then I would ask the students, okay, now think of all the words you can with TH. And so we'll make a list of words, and as they say it, we'll just go ahead and write it up there and add it. So before you know it, you have a whole long list of words that begin or have a TH somewhere in there. So it's a good way to reinforce what your phonics lesson was for the day. The cookie jar one is where you make, like, what I had was just a laminated cookie. It was an M&M cookie on one side, and on the back I had some poems. Now I say had only because I lost them along the way. I would use them for training and we passed them along, and then somehow, somewhere, I never got one back. But anyway, just that example was a cookie on one side. On the opposite side was a poem. They had a few minutes left. Someone could reach into the cookie jar, pull out one of the cookies, and we would read the poem to the students on the back. You know, poetry sometimes is something really hard to get into your school day. And it's like, oh gosh, I do good with nonfiction. I do good with fiction stories. But where do I have time to do poetry? And there's sometimes just a few places you can get it in. But hearing it or having that few minutes for a sponge activity is really great for the students to hear it. I have a student's name up there, Joseph, as an example. One other thing I've also done is have the students, well, pick a student's name, and whoever that student is gets to stand or sit somewhere in the front of the room, and everybody gets to say something really positive about that student. And they feel really good when they get those compliments, the student does, and it's also a way to teach them, okay, now someone gave you a compliment. It's always nice to say thank you. So again, just a little time filler or activity filler that will fill in those few minutes of time before either whether you're transitioning to something else or perhaps to lunch or recess. Okay, Shannon? All right, so some characteristics of sponge activities. And I want you to keep these in mind because later when we get to the portfolio entry, you'll notice that one of your entries is a sponge or a bell work. So as you think about sponges and sponge activities, they're normally something pretty fun. It's based on what students have already been taught or familiar with. They're generally used with the whole class. It could be a group or it could be an individual. And again, it's to fill up that few minutes before your next activity or event. It's easily implemented, uses minimal equipment, something you can pull out right away and real quick, and it can be implemented for varying lengths of time. So for my cookie jar example, if we had more than a few minutes left, I could pick up several of those cookies and read poetry to the students. So it's not something like a one-time, okay, we're done, because then you might still have a few more minutes in between your activities. But again, something really fun. One activity I've seen for a sponge activity was something called Stump the Teacher. And this was more a secondary example, where the science teacher, after the lesson, would come up with that sponge of stump your teacher. And what the students had to do is think of questions they could ask the teacher that the teacher wouldn't be able to answer. So it was really exciting because students got to talk with each other, come up with a few questions, ask the teacher, and see if the teacher could even answer the question. So it not only was fun, but it really kind of reinforced what was learned for that day, as well as made the students feel like, wow, maybe I can stump the teacher with a question that they won't know. All right, Shannon, next. All right. Oh, I think, was that the next one, the supplement, or did you skip over? Okay, yeah, so in a group, what you're gonna do is share a sponge activity, and we say group, but you're gonna be broken up with your students. So what you wanna do is, as the people are sharing their sponge activities, you might wanna take some really careful notes should you use that as a portfolio entry. There might be something you already do that's really neat and it works really great, and you might wanna share it with your group. And as you do that, the people that you're sharing it with may have questions for you. So if you're writing down an idea that you get and you want a little bit more information on it so that you can use it as your entry, ask those questions to the person sharing. Get a lot of information so that when it comes time for you to implement it, if you choose to, you'll have enough content to write about. All right, so next, Shannon. Okay, so in your supplement or professional reading, you'll see there's a link, and on page 60, there are some ideas about other types of sponge activities that you could use with your students. When you first open that professional reading, it just, all you'll see is the transition examples on the first 2 pages, but if you scroll to that 3rd page, that page 60 is filled with other links or sites that you could go to that would take you to or give you more information on sponge activities you could do with your students. Also, this link here, we won't necessarily take you to it, but you can go ahead and click on it yourself at a later time. This particular website is filled with some ideas too about things you could do for sponge activities. All right, next one. Okay, I think we got to go back because we missed that group. Can you go back one more, Shannon? The group work, yeah. Okay, so we're going to be taking a little bit time to put you into groups right now and have you share some or activities that you currently do with your students. And I think, Shannon, we should have that breakout room still saved, so we should be okay with using that same one because they were kind of by grade levels already. But we'll give you about 15 minutes to share with each other an activity you already do. And if you're not really familiar with a sponge activity, as you hear your colleagues share, you may get some ideas like, oh, yeah, I do that with my students, and this is something that I do. You may not call it a sponge activity, it's just a term we used. And as you can see earlier, it was by, I think it was Hunter, that coined that term sponge activity. But we'll go ahead and put you into your breakout rooms again. Talk with your colleagues about something you do, take notes, ask questions, and be prepared should you want to use that as your portfolio entry. Okay. So I will go ahead and put you back into your same breakout rooms.
Jackie, I made some modifications because
Okay.
there's a good chunk of people who are not here.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yeah, so just follow the invite or stay if there wasn't one. And are groups of 3 okay?
Yes, that's fine.
There's not anywhere for me to go. Like it doesn't say go to a room.
Same. Hey, Ashley and Courtney, you guys can just stay here. If you didn't get the invite, that means you're just going to be in the main room.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Because that way we have, when people are going back and watching this, they're able to watch the conversation too.
What we do next on the power of dreams.
Do you guys do any sponge work activity in your room?
I would say I do it more like a brain break. Like I do like skip counting because we're doing multiplication. Just do, but I mean, do you
Yeah.
guys?
Not really, because I mean,
No.
I
Math?
literally have maybe like 2 minutes at the end of the period when they're just cleaning
Mhm.
up and then they have to go.
That's true, yeah, because you guys only have them for periods, right? Like certain
Yeah.
amount of
It's like 50 minutes a period. And then if ever we have time, we'll play like a game. They like games, so
yeah.
but
The other day we did yesterday we did rock, paper, scissors, but like they did it where they did their math. Like you have
What
10
did you-
fingers.
huh?
They have like 10 finger. Hold on, my video is actually working now. So you have 10 fingers. My video on?
No.
I turned it on, but I don't know. Whatever. So you have your 10 fingers, and you're like rock, paper, scissors, and then you shoot, and then they do a number, and then the other person does a number, and then they have to multiply, and whoever says the correct answer first wins.
Huh.
Because we
Oh,
had
yeah,
like gone over some stuff, and we were about to give them a quiz, and we're like, let's just give them a second to breathe.
Do you do it's just one fingers on one hand?
No, up to 10.
That's a good one.
And there's always that one kid that'll be like just 0 every time, because then they
Oh.
just yell 0.
Yeah, they get it correct.
Genius. They're geniuses. I give
Yeah.
them an
Yeah, little Jofia. I was like, Jofia, you can't do 0. I'm tired. I don't want to think. I'm like, well, I appreciate you being smarter than the system, but participate.
That's a good one though, because some of these kids, they just have a hard time with that multiplication.
Oh,
Even
yeah.
at grade, I'm like, you do not use your smartwatch for the calculator to do 2 times 3, guys. But yeah, that's a good one.
And it's still math related.
Yeah. I should try that one day.
We do like, you have to find someone in the room and find out their favorite. Am I doing this? But like find out their favorite pizza topping, and then you have to make the first letter with your body. So like
Oh,
you turn into a P for pepperoni.
like onions, like this.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good one.
Schoolers that like onions, honestly, but yes.
Yeah, sure. Like, I just watched my friend's little kid. She's like maybe 1.5 years old. All she ate last night was the onions.
Really?
What?
Called onions. I was like, okay.
Where did you guys go?
We went to the beer company.
Oh, you guys love going there.
Yeah. The food's good there.
I never go early enough, I guess.
Yeah, I had the chicken tenders last night. It was good.
That fits into your 5 things you eat.
Yes. What do you guys do for like bell work?
I have them write down their homework. That's what I wrote down in the chat. And then they do like either if they didn't do their homework, they do their homework. And then I have like these what we call like STEM bins, and I don't know if they count as STEM, but they have like Legos or like those little blocks or
Oh,
we only have about like 10 minutes and my kids come tardy a lot. So
yeah, that's us too.
Yeah.
We just started. We're going to start implementing tardy sweeps because they're just always tardy. So you have to
Does
wait
not
for-
care about tardies.
Yeah, they don't. They really.
Yeah, I'm like,
you
what?
guys do morning work? Like bell work?
Yeah.
Oh, you guys do.
I don't because they grab their books and we just dive straight in.
Yeah, I'm like, you guys only have so much time. That's why.
Yeah, and it's like the first thing that I had introduced the title, introduce the learning target. Here is your warm up. You have 3 minutes, ready, set, go. And I have to explain what the warm up is, you know, and then because it's like we just started this curriculum it's just like time, like no room for going outside of this time thing, you know. So but then when they're doing that warm up for their 3 minutes and then turn to your table partner, that's when I do all my attendance and how come you're late and you know.
I was surprised you stuck with it this long.
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, I kind of like it. So our
Oh
school,
Lord.
our school was telling us from last school year that we have to use this curriculum because our math scores, they just suck. They're terrible. They don't know what's going on. And I'm like, well, a lot of it is because they haven't had consistent math teachers because the math teachers are always leaving, you know, it's nobody wants to work at our school. I mean, I feel like that's at every school, you know, and nobody wants to teach these kids over there math. So I feel like that's part of it. But so they're like, you have to use this curriculum. You have to use it. And we're like, okay. And we fought it all last school year, tried to get them to say, no, we don't need to use it. And now we have to use it. And we had our training on it. I'm like, I kind of like it. They give me the warm-ups to do. They give
You
me
tell
this.
Sam that?
Yeah, I told Sam. She doesn't, she's still like, nah, I don't like it, but I kind of like it.
Good thing you tried it then.
Yeah. But I'm curious to see what our scores are because, you know, there's only so much I feel like it's going to do.
Good talk.
Good talk.
Okay, so welcome back. I know it was less than the time we allotted, but it seems like most of the groups were working through those questions pretty quick. So it was exciting to pop in and hear some of your ideas. I've asked some of the groups if they could have just somebody share out one of those activities they heard someone talk about in their groups. So I know we had 3 breakout rooms. Well, we had the main room, we had breakout 2, breakout 3, and breakout 4. So let's see, breakout room 2. Someone like to share from that group? That was Heather, Kiana, Michelle.
Okay, I'll share out, but it's I'm sharing one of the team members one, what their activity
Sure.
was. It was around the world and it was embedded in math. So if I remember this correctly, they're sitting around in a circle and they're doing math facts. And if I guess there's two students sitting on the outside, I mean, standing up behind the kids on the outside. And if they get it correct, they get to move. And whoever makes it around the world wins. So so we said that's a great idea, and I'm going to try it too.
That is a fun one, and they like that challenge, right? To be
Yeah.
able to move and answer those questions, and it is a good review of the
Yeah.
facts. So thank you, Michelle. Okay. Breakout 3, Alice, Ashley, or Jessica? Someone could share. So it looks like it's Ashley or Alice left. It looks like Jessica had left.
I can share. This was actually from
Thank you.
Jessica.
Uh-huh.
There was this thing that she does called Math Talks. So what it is like at the end of the day or sometime during the day, she would give a math problem to the kids, and they would have to solve it mentally, I believe. Is that what she said? And then like they're not allowed to say it out loud yet. They can't use anything, so they have to share it out loud. So she'll count down 1, 2, 3, and then they'll say their answer or whatever, and then they get to work. Some of the friends get to show the strategies, and then it's shown on the board. Just some way for them to like see how their classmates did. I just thought it was pretty cute because like you get to see them talk about how they do their math and what it's like for the other kids to see it as well.
Oh, that is neat. So it sounds like it's set up before, and then they have time to think about it, and then at some point they do share it. That's kind of a good way to get them thinking and get them ready to think about how are they going to solve it, what they're going to say and do. But thank you, Alice. Okay, and breakout 4, Alyssa, Kale, Pule, or Tia.
I can share for
Thank
my
you,
group.
Pule.
I'm gonna be like everybody else, and I'll share what one of my group members said.
That's fine. Sure.
And one of them that they talked about, and I thought it was a great idea because I don't do this, is that they have task boxes so that when there is any free time or when they finish their work early, all they have to do is go to the area with the task box and they just grab a box and they work on it at their seats. And as a grade level, I believe she said that they share with one another, so she has more than 50 task spots that she is able to put into rotation all year long, which I thought that is amazing. But at the same time, there was me and another we're talking about how we're not there yet for them to even work individually, or we just don't have time in a day
Yeah.
at this point to have to allow them to have individual time. So yeah, that's what we shared.
Oh, thank you. That is really neat to have that all set up and something they can do and do independently too. So yeah, great. Thank you. And I totally hear you about the time. That sometimes there really is no 5 minutes left or 3 minutes left. Yeah, we kind of go from almost bell to bell, and then there's really very few times when we can get a transition or a sponge in there. But yeah, good thing to have though, should you need that in the event you do have a few minutes or time for students to work on something, because that definitely does minimize some of the problem behaviors that could occur if students have nothing to do. So thank you for sharing that, Boots. All right, so Shannon, if you can put the slides back up, please. Okay, I'll go ahead and try. Hold on.
Sorry, I didn't realize it wasn't sharing.
Oh, okay, that's okay. Thank you. If you can, please. Thank
Give
you.
me 1 second.
No worries.
There we go. Is that working?
Thank you, Shannon. It's coming. Yep. It's there. Okay, so the next part we're going to move into is something called signals. So on this page, you'll see, some people call this a Zen chime. I'm not sure what it really is called, but it has a really nice sound. And when you tap on it, it kind of resonates. So what I've done is I've used this in my class frequently, and the students know that when that bell or that chime is tapped, that I need their attention or something is happening and I need to talk to them and say something. So they've learned that usually with this signal, whenever they hear it, they stop what they're doing and they look at me. And the good part is it resonates. So they have a few minutes or a few seconds to kind of finish up what they were talking to their friends about, if that was a situation, before they actually go silent and put their eyes on me for whatever I need to announce to them. But in this part, we'll talk about signals or a way to get students' attention, especially when they're doing group work or partner work. It can get pretty loud sometimes, and your voice may not be able to go above the sound in the room. So what kind of signal would you use to get the students' attention back on you? So next slide, Shannon. All right, so it's really a visual or an auditory cue. I've seen where teachers will turn off the lights for a visual cue. And of course, when the lights goes off and the room gets a little dark, students automatically stop talking and they look and see, wow, what happened? Did the electricity go off or something? Some people find that a little bit annoying, so they don't do that. When I was in a different classroom last year, it was a shared room. And so it was not easy for me to just go and turn off lights. So that was something I could not do. And I had to find a different way to get my attention of my students if needed. But sharing rooms is sometimes a challenge because I needed to remember that somebody else on the other side needed the lights and I couldn't just stop and turn them off. So the other type of cue for a signal could be an auditory cue. I hear this one used a lot, and they say 1, 2, 3 is what the teacher says, eyes on me, and the students would answer 1, 2, eyes on you. I've also seen it where the teacher will say waterfall, and the students were taught that when they hear that, they put their finger to their mouth and they go shh. So it sounds like a waterfall falling, right? But they say shh, and through that, they stop their conversations. There's many different types of signals you can give to the students, but as you think about the signals, you can go to the next slide, Shannon. You want to think about making sure you teach those signals to the students and that they practice it. So they need to know, first of all, what that signal is. And like Shannon mentioned in her previous module about making sure you allow time to practice, it's no different for signals as well. If I never teach the student what that signal is, they'll never really know what to do. So really making sure we teach the signal, have students practice it, and then reinforce it when you do see the students doing what they're expected to do or supposed to do. So what we have here is just a quick short video about signals.
An attention signal is a way for the teacher to get the attention of his or her students. And the way I use it is when my students are busy doing other work, or maybe they're getting a little bit rowdy, or I'm trying to gather them back from a big activity, I call out to them using the phrase that I've chosen for my attention signal. I'm going to teach you this attention signal, okay? So what I will do is I will say to you, my voice is on, and you guys will respond, my voice is off. Can we try that part? That's part one. Ready? My voice is on.
My voice is off.
Nice. Very good. Then I say, my eyes are on you, and they say back to me, my eyes are on you. And that way I know that I've got their full attention, their eyes and their ears are open, and they're ready for the next thing. They're ready for my directions.
A teacher likes an attention signal so she can get our attention really quick.
Okay, my voice is on.
My voice is off.
My eyes are on you.
My eyes are on you.
What I like about the attention signal is that it's a really positive way to get their attention and to call their focus back. And so instead of my standing there saying, listen to me, everybody, you know, and kind of repeating myself over and over, it's a way for me to, in a very positive way, get their eyes and their ears on me. My voice is on. My voice is off. My eyes are on you. My eyes are on you. Awesome. And it builds a really kind of fun rapport between us as we're getting ready to move to the next thing.
Okay, thank you, Shannon. So you noticed in that video where the teacher reinforced it. So that was great. She allowed them to practice it. And when they got it, she would always say, awesome, or good job, they did it well. And they need that reinforcement or feedback to know that they've got the routine or that signal down. Next, Shannon. Okay, so that was really a verbal signal. There's other types of signals you could use in the class as well, and these are more like nonverbal signals that will help to keep the instruction going, but have a way to acknowledge a student's thought as well. So Shannon, if you could share that video.
We all learned something, and I appreciate the time you put into really making it special. Thank you. I see a lot of friends.
Nonverbal signals keep the classroom running well by minimizing interruptions.
I clearly need to review number models. Where are you with that? Okay, so we'll get a little more practice before we...
Give me a fist of 5. Give me what you think how you did on this learning target. Give it to me, you can flash it to me fast.
Teachers can communicate messages to the whole class or individuals quickly
We're about to go right into our centers.
and silently. Students can make requests of the teacher or send messages to each other without disturbing the work of others.
Are you confused on how to do a simile? Because you gave me a fist.
I know how to do a simile, but I need help like some.
Schools and classrooms can invent their own signals, or American Sign Language can provide signals for any purpose.
What are some of the ways you can build on the ideas of others? Show me disagree. Good. What else can you do to build? Good. Add on. What else can you do? Clarify. Okay, what else?
Okay, thank you again, Shannon. So you notice in that one, the first part was more of a teacher giving signals to students to get their attention. This part is really looking at what can students do also to give their feedback or provide feedback, but yet keep instruction going and having less disruption. So you've noticed the teacher just trying to get feedback from the students, and they're using signals to tell how they feel without each person having to say something. You can quickly look at it and see how they're feeling. I like to use that one about agree a lot, and then even a disagree as a quick way for students who are sharing to get ideas or feedback from their peers. There's always debate about a thumbs down, and I tend not to use that one in our class. When my students are giving feedback, we do a thumbs up, and if there's something that maybe is unclear or they don't agree with or they need to clarify, they would do a thumb sideways. So that kind of eliminates some of the boo or yeah, you did a terrible job or anything, but it's more like a thumb sideways. So it kind of is part of that growth mindset too. Like it's not thumbs down terrible, but it's like there's something I need to fix or change. So looking at how we can keep instruction going by even teaching students some nonverbal signals. Okay, Shannon? All right, so how do you signal your class for attention? We just want to hear from you, like what are some of the things you do whenever you want to get your students' attention back on you? So you can just do a quick, either a chat and type it in the chat box, or someone is willing to share can go ahead and turn on their mic, and we'd love to hear some of your ideas. So what do you use or what do you do?
Oh, I'm sorry, my mic was on the whole time.
That's okay.
The things that I have a few. When they are doing their work and I need their attention, or we're outside and I need their attention, I just say, "Ayo," and they all say back to me, "Ayo," and I have taught it so that they have to pause and they have to look at me, and then I'll give a couple more seconds until I say it again. Then I will say, "Okay, so we have 3 friends who's still not looking at me, so ayo," and they say it back to me. But when we are doing maybe like math work, and I give them some time to do like individual work, and instead of so they don't go po, you know, the whole class. I just tell them, if you're finished, just put your pencil down, and then I'll know. You don't have to let me know. And so they've learned to put it down. But every once in a while they're putting it down, they're like, po. I'm like, so that's what I did. That's so simple, but it's very hard for me.
Yeah, thank you. That's great, Lily. I love that. Ew, I've heard that one too. Yeah, that's a good one to use. Simple. And the students love it. Anybody else can share? Yeah, sorry about that, Jessica, too. I noticed she mentioned she's having a little hard time with having to log in and out. How about one more idea? Or signals.
I can do one. We do a clapping pattern and then they have to do it back. And then if there's still kids who aren't listening, then I'll do a different pattern. So they have to have thought about it. And if they have to clap, they have to put down what they're doing. So I know that they're not writing or anything anymore.
Yes.
And that'll stop them from what they're working on at that time.
I like that, Heather. I never thought of that. Yeah, when they clap, they have to stop. Because a lot of times, sometimes they'll just look at you, but they'll still have things in their hands if not, and they're still fidgeting or doing something with it. So I do like that idea, the clapping one. Good. Can you give us an example of a pattern? How, like, can you just quickly do a pattern just to give us an idea?
And they would have to do it back. And then if I needed to do a second one, I might do. And so then they'd have to do it. And if I still have kids who aren't listening, then I might have to come up with a third one. And, you know, at that point, it's like, okay, we're done. We're moving on. But sometimes if you do, I found like 1, 2, 3 eyes on me and they won't stop what they're doing, but they'll keep working and they'll say it. And it's like, you know, your eyes are not really on me. So if I say it, you know, I'm expecting that eye contact. And so we'll go through that.
Yeah.
But this way I know they at least have to put down what they're doing to participate.
Exactly. Great. Thank you. I like that idea. Okay. I've seen one too where the teacher will say, hey, listen up. And the students will respond, yo, what's up? So there's many different types of signals, but the main thing is that you teach it to the students, they practice it, and then you reinforce it. I've also seen an auditory one called salami. And what salami really means is stop and look at me immediately. So if the students are working, the teacher would just say salami. And students have already learned and practiced. That means I'm going to stop whatever I'm doing, put things down, and look at the teacher because she has or he has something to say. So many different things you could use, but it's important to have signals taught to the students so that you have a way to get their attention back, especially when they're working and the room starts getting really loud. All right, so we're going to move into the last part, which is looking at transitions. So when you think about transitions is really there's something changing ahead. And you can go to the next slide, Shannon. The next 2 slides, actually. Okay, so it's really, you have something coming up. There's 2 activities. You have something that you finished or going to be finished and something new that's starting or happening. There's different types of transitioning. We kind of grouped it into 3 different types. One transition you can think about is when the students come in the morning. What do they do when they enter the class and when they take, and how do they take a seat? The other one is going from one activity to another. What do students do during that transition? And the last type of transitioning is looking at how students will exit the class. I've seen, especially with the exiting, where teachers will say the bell doesn't excuse you, but the teacher does. Sometimes as soon as the students hear that bell and they know school's done or recess is coming, they want to get out the door, right? But it's like, no, the the bell doesn't excuse you, but the teacher does. So that's something the students have to be taught and know as well, so that they don't automatically just leave. But when you think about transition, think about those 3 types of transitions throughout your day. Okay, next one, Shannon. All right, so when you think about efficient transitions, you want to make sure that the transition that you have is planned out. What are the procedures? So it kind of ties back again to Shannon's module on the procedures that she talked about and routines. How are you going to teach these transitions to the students so that they are successful with doing it, and so that they can do it and you can continue with the learning or have more successful classroom management? Very similar to Signal, students need to practice those transitions. And again, you want to reinforce it. So there seems to be a theme here. When we teach something to students that is new, make sure we can teach it, students practice it, and we provide feedback for how they're doing. I have a link down here, which is the online stopwatch that I use a lot in my classroom. And it's just a visual with 3 different types of stopwatches that help with the classroom management. For example, there's just a regular timer, a circle timer that just counts down as it goes. There's also a candle one that's kind of neat, because as you set the timer, the candle will start burning out. And then there's a third one. I'm drawing a blank on that one, but whenever I have students transition to, let's say, the large group work to going back to their seats, I set the timer and I said, okay, you have 1 minute to go back, get out your workbook or practice book, have your pencil ready, and get started with no talking. So oftentimes we have to practice that again, because in that 30 seconds, they'll already start the talking. So we bring them back again to the carpet and say, all right, let's practice that again. We forgot how to go back to our classroom and start, or our seats, and get started right away. But that one is really important, because you want to minimize the amount of talking, the amount of downtime, but really that the students learn as soon as they are done with this one, they go back and they get started right away. It's not a time to go back and start talking with my friends or start playing around, but really practice it again. Okay, we're going to try it again. I'll give you 1 minute, start the timer again. We talked about, like, well, you forgot to turn your mouth off, you didn't stop talking, or as soon as you got to your seat, you started talking. And then also looking for, when you reinforce, students who are doing it right, and really recognizing students for that. Oftentimes when you do that, other students will look at who you're talking about and start picking up tips on what that student is doing right, and they want to oftentimes do the same. So reinforcing the appropriate or expected behavior. All right, next one, Shannon. Okay, so we have a short video here on some transitions. I think you need to.
I noticed that everyone has hands free and eyes on me. Oh, almost everyone.
Transitions should be clear for every student. Purposeful, respectful, efficient.
That was easy. And thanks for your work over the last 25 minutes of class. I just wanted to check in and see if you had any kind of like technology questions that maybe popped up as you started this work on your graph.
Transitions during lessons work best when they are planned by the teacher ahead of time to move the lesson forward smoothly.
Up on the board, our last protocol for today. There are 5 posters around the room now. When I write lesson plans, I write what it is I'm going to say and what it is I'm going to do during a transition. So if I don't plan transitions before doing them, I might not do them in the most effective way.
Directions should be given in small bites. Materials should be easy to access.
In your own seat sack, you will find a little surprise from me. I disseminated the materials this morning prior to the lesson. My students have seat sacks behind their chairs, so I had tucked away the materials that I had differentiated for them.
Transitions can be practiced regularly by students, rehearsed and critiqued by the class until they are sharp.
Let's try one more time, because I want everyone's beautiful eyes on me. And Now I see everyone's hands are free and eyes are on me. Much better. It's time to clean up.
Thank you, Shannon. Okay, so you can see that for those transitions, it's almost incorporating signals as well, right? Like they were teaching students how to get their attention back on the students or what to do to get to the next activity. So they're all very intertwined. Signals, transitions, sponges are fillers, and bell work as well. So to finish up this module, we're going to look at some transition problems. We won't look at the solutions yet because you'll be helping us out with the solutions. In your professional reading section, there are some transition problems. We're not going to look at them right now because they'll be on the slides, and we'll be assigning you to a particular transition problem. And what you'll do as a group is you'll brainstorm some possible solutions. When we break you up this time, you'll be in random groups, and you might be with a high school person in your elementary, but it really doesn't matter when you think about the problems that occur and how you can best solve them. So when you're done, be ready to share out your transition problems. There'll be 4 that we have. Each one will be assigned to a group, and we found that this doesn't usually take too long. So we'll give you about 5 minutes on this, but get some ideas about how you can solve this problem should it occur in your classroom. So if you go to the next slide, Shannon, you'll notice that when we get you into your breakout rooms, if you are in the main room, you'll be doing that first transition problems about how students talk loudly. Okay, if you're in breakout room 1, you'll talk about how when the teacher delays the beginning of activities. If you get to breakout room 3 or 2, you'll talk about how students socialize too much. And in breakout room 3, whenever the teacher attempts to move the students from one activity to another. So again, these transition problems are in your professional reading. If you forget what the actual problem is, you can always go there and look it up. But we'll give you about 5 minutes. Make sure after you discuss, you have somebody from your group share out how you folks resolve that particular transition problem. All right, any questions before? Great, so we'll go ahead and assign you randomly, give you 5 minutes. Thank you.
Do you guys have access to the transitions, problems, and solutions page? Because I'm trying to click it and it says I don't have access, or the file you have requested does not exist.
I got the same.
I have the same problem. Maybe raise my hand. There we go.
I
Is
guess
it
she'll
on?
make her way back.
I think so.
Um, we're in the main room, right?
Did it have it on the slide?
Yeah, the transition problems are on the slide. So because we're in the
okay.
main room, so the transition problem was students talk loudly at the beginning of the period. The teacher is interrupted while checking attendance, and the start of the contact activities is delayed.
Sorry, were you folks wondering about where to type the responses?
That, and we don't have access to the page for transition problem and solution. It said it doesn't exist.
Oh, okay. Were you able to get to the slides and look at the slide for the problem? If not,
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And you don't need to type anything. It's just a share out with your own group, so nothing to type.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Awesome.
how do we solve this problem?
Students talk loudly at the beginning of the period.
My question: what are they talking about though?
In attendance, they probably telling each other what they're wearing. Well, this is for
Oh yeah, true.
what they have for snacks, or whatever they talk about all kind of things. And so for me, I just use my call signal, and truthfully, I don't say anything while I'm checking attendance. I've learned to, because they're busy.
Yes.
Putting everything away. I use if they grab their name tags.
Yeah, I do that too.
And then when I count, I'm like, how come I have too many who forgot their name tags? And then I see whoever who's grabbing them. So I'm like, okay. But sorry, I don't know how to do this one.
It's fine. I think talking loudly and disrupt.
Maybe I would just do my call signal and tell them I just need a few minutes. Let's see how do your morning work.
True.
Do your morning work with no voices. I just need a few minutes, guys. That's all. I see that a lot, actually. I just need a few minutes.
Yeah, I tell them, hold on. I tell them, hold on. I'm still getting ready. Almost there.
And a lot of times it's because I'm talking with another teacher who needs to tell me something about a specific student. So like, I can't even hear you. You're right next to me.
Alyssa, what do you do? Oh, sorry.
No. Go ahead, Alyssa. Go ahead.
I do the same thing as Pule. I just do a call. Either I'll use my classroom one or we have a school-wide attention getter. But since they're first grade, they move really slow, so they take the whole time. So the loud talking is not really an issue. I'll use an attention getter, and then I'll tell them, okay, look at the clock. When the long hand is pointing at the 10, I want you to be sitting at the carpet quietly. And they've been pretty good about doing it. Yeah.
I'm curious, Alyssa, what is your school-wide attention getter or attention signal?
So we call out the number 1, and we're holding up a 1 finger in the air, and the students have to follow. So they'll know that we're trying to get their attention, and then we immediately go to 2, holding up 2 fingers. And when they see 2 fingers, that's when they know their voices should be turned off. They tap someone else if they're not, paying attention. And then by the time we get to 3, it should be absolutely quiet. and then we can continue giving them directions. We have a school-wide one because, you know, like if our principal or any other outside classroom teacher needs to get their attention, everyone's using the same thing, so we're all on the same page.
Yeah, I like that. That's really neat. Yeah, especially because sometimes we have problems in our cafeteria and there's really no agreed upon signal, right? So the students really don't know, like.
Yeah.
True. Great idea. I like the
Yeah,
idea a
I
lot.
really like that. Yeah. And then for your particular problem, it could just be that they have no entry routine either. So it might be just to establish one, right? Because there's nothing in place for that transition problem. So they may need to just establish something so the students can be quiet while you're doing the attendance and everything. Yeah, so thank you, everybody. We can go ahead and, I think I'll go ahead and close the rest of the rooms. Okay, so just winding down really quick on Shannon, if you can go back, actually before we get to the portfolios, I'm gonna go to the breakout room 3. I'm gonna work my way backwards this time. So we have our transition problem before us about whenever the teacher attempts to move the students from one activity to another. So breakout room 3, someone quickly share how would you solve that particular problem?
So we talked about how the kids might not know when it's time to clean up. So maybe giving them a heads up, do an attention getter. And once you have their attention, letting them know like, hey, you guys have only 2-3 more minutes left to finish your work. And that might help. That's what we talked about.
That's a great idea. No, thank you. That's good. Yeah. Let's move to breakout room 2 about students socializing too much. Someone from breakout room 2? I'll come back to breakout room 2. Breakout 1, the teacher delays the beginning of activities to look for materials. So someone from breakout room 1 can share. How did you resolve that?
I'll share. We said that the teacher should either prepare before the next, like the day before, or come to work early to make sure. And then we started talking about how one of our partners, there was a teacher that had 2 scissors for 26 students, and they're supposed to cut stuff. And then just making sure you have enough materials for the students and all that. Yeah, that's what we talked about.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, sometimes there's just not enough supplies. So great. And then the main room, the students talking loudly.
I can share unless somebody else wants to share. We talked about using the attention signals and using attention signals. Also describing, I'm letting them know what you're doing. So they have our voices support just to have an activity for them to do during this time too. While you're attendance.
Thank you, Pule. Okay, and one last try for breakout room 2. We're almost done. So breakout room 2, socializing too much. Oh, thank you so
because
much.
I accidentally told my group about the wrong question or wrong problem. But
Oh,
anyway,
that's okay.
that's wrong. But for that problem, one thing that could help is just making sure the students know what's expected for the assignment. So you could have the students talk to each other before you excuse them or before you start them. They could talk to each other about what their task is so that they all know what to do, and make sure that they know as soon as you say to start, they actually start. So you can set the expectations like no voice or work on your own. So those are some things that maybe you could try if you have that problem.
It's good suggestions. Thank you so much for sharing, Tia. All right, so let's go on to then our last part, which is our portfolio entry. All right, so you'll notice on this part for module 6, you're gonna select one, either a bell work or a sponge. So that is what this part encompasses. You're gonna select either a sponge or bell work and do your write-up based on that item that you select. Okay, so next, Shannon. All right, you'll notice this part has 4 sections. So part 1, we asked that you describe the activity in detail. And when we say detail, remember that whoever is reading or reviewing your entry has not seen your activity, has not done it. So make sure there's enough information. So as you provide that detail, they can see it in their mind, like, oh, that's what they're doing. Okay, I get it. This is what they did first, and this is what happens next. And then make sure that the item or the activity that you're doing is new. So don't write about something you already do. It should be an idea that you obtain from either your colleague, from us, or from one of the links on that professional reading. There's a lot of ideas as well, or something you've heard from your group today, but make sure it's something new. Part 2, they'll ask, did you have any problems? So there's 2 parts to this. Either it's a yes or it's a no. So you need to answer one of those questions. And if it's a yes, you definitely need to describe the problem and how you addressed it or will address it in the future. And if it's a no, that you had no problems, why? So really give that explanation why you think it ran so well. Was it because it was well planned out? You had everything prepared, students knew what to do, etc., whatever pertains to your activity. Part 3, you need to answer all 3 of those questions where you describe the student's reaction. And we can just share with you that in the past, that's one thing or one prompt that frequently gets left out. So oftentimes when we review your entry, if that question is left out or your response to that question, then your entry will more than likely be returned to you. So make sure you answer this, describe the student's reaction, and did they react as you expected. So very important to include those 2. And then an explanation about how this activity enhanced or hindered your classroom management. So again, answer all 3 parts. And in part 4, you need to answer both questions. And it needs to be more than a few sentences, but really when you think about your bell work or you think about your sponge, what aspects are most challenging for you when you do a bell work or sponge? Some people will say just making sure we can always have new material for them might be a challenge, or preparing the material ahead of time might be a challenge. But think about your particular situation. What is challenging when you implement that bell work? And at the same time, what is most comfortable when you do that bell work or sponge? So be sure to answer both parts of it. We try to underline and bold the parts that are really important and make sure that you can include that in your entry so you can we're able to completely review your entry and not have to return it to you as a redo. All right, so that's your entry for part 6. Again, choosing a bell work or a sponge. Next slide, Shannon. So we're almost there. We've already gone through 6 modules. We only have 3 more to go, and then the course will be done. So it's really close to the end of the particular sessions, and then it becomes really time for you to make sure that you can go and complete the write-ups and modules and entries. We did complete up to 6. If you go to the next slide, Shannon, you'll notice that the next time we meet will be just for module 7. It is a Wednesday evening one. So it'll be at 7 o'clock for communication styles. And after that, they'll just be the last 2 modules, 8 and 9, and we'll be done with the live sessions, but you will still have a little bit more time to complete your portfolio. So again, make sure you try to keep up with the due dates as much as possible. That will help to not have so many things to work on towards the end. One thing we wanted to stress is that for module 9, when you get to that final reflection, you also need to remember to go back to module 1 to complete part 4 of the philosophy, because that part 4 does come toward the end of the course after we've gone through all the live session parts. So module 9 gets a little bit crazy because you have that module 9 as well as remembering to go back and do module 1 part 4. All right, so if you have any questions, feel free to stay on after everyone signs off, but we are very thankful that you've stayed with us. I know it's a little bit past 1. I appreciate your time on a Saturday, but we don't want to keep you any longer. So enjoy the rest of your Saturday and your weekend, and we'll see you again if you signed up for the 21st. So thank you, everybody.